Everybody's got problem clients, and problem clients come from one place. They come from a poor sales process. If you are focused as an organization on closing the deal, you're going to end up with clients that aren't awesome, because your focus shouldn't be on closing the deal, but rather on closing the right deal. As you qualify clients, you need to think about them. Not only can they afford us, but also, do they have a similar work style and communication style as we do? Here's a great example. If you are a marketer that's very informal, you sort of manage things on the fly via Slack, there are no client meetings, it's all a dialogue all the time, you are not likely to be very successful with a client who has weekly marketing meetings where the marketing manager reports to the CMO saying this is what has happened. Because if you don't have that relationship with your client, they can't provide that information to their organization. One of the biggest things you need to do is make sure that your work and communication styles match. That's number one. And that happens during the sales process, because you can frankly just ask questions that expose their work style. Like, hey, are you guys really email driven, or is Slack cool? Do you look at dashboards regularly? Do you need clear reports or intricate reports? What do you need? And if that doesn't match up with what you can deliver, they're not a good fit. There's two other issues that really come up. Let's call them problem clients. And they're not really problem clients. They're clients whose needs you're not meeting. But let's say there's a client who's never satisfied with the results. Well, that is almost entirely likely because you did not define what the results set should or could be with your client when you were creating the relationship. And so they have created their own set of expectations, and you're not matching them, but you never gave them your set of expectations. Another important way to manage problem clients is to not let the expectations be misaligned. Lots of agencies have their case study where they've delivered 11,000% increase in return on ad spend or whatever, something silly like that. If that's what you sell, that's what your client is going to expect. So even if you do an amazing job and get them a 500% increase in return on ad spend, that's much lower than 11,000% increase in return on ad spend. In this case, it is not the results that are at issue, it is the expectations. So you need to constantly align expectations during the sales process, during the onboarding process, and during your client calls. Now, the third kind of problem client is exactly the same as the second kind of problem client, but you might experience them as the client that is micromanaging or has too many opinions. Well, they don't actually have too many opinions. It's just that you haven't set up appropriate boundaries to manage those opinions. If you were making Facebook ad creative, you might get feedback like, well, this isn't fresh enough, or we always put the logo on the upper right-hand side. We never put it on the lower left-hand side. What has happened there is they have a set of expectations and a sense of how they want things, but you as an agency didn't extract those from them. You didn't ask questions like, do you have a brand style guide? What also happens is clients are making last minute changes, which drives agencies crazy. They don't look at the campaign until 20 minutes before it's supposed to go live. And they're like, oh yeah, no, I don't like that picture, or I don't like the way that model's hand is in that picture, so let's change it all. That happens because you have given them permission to allow that to happen. You have created an environment where you have not set up the boundaries that say something like, hey, when we give you ad creative, we need to have a turnaround in 3 days, because if we don't get your comments within 3 days, we can't hit the launch date. When your client doesn't give you feedback within 3 days, you just need to drop them a line saying, hey, listen, we didn't get your feedback in time. Therefore, we're going to have to slide this launch by 2 or 3 days until you get your feedback to us. And that's setting a boundary. And if a client fires you because of that, they were going to fire you anyways. You need to set boundaries so that you and the client are working off the same set of expectations around results, around communication styles, and around timeliness and control. Difficult clients are managed by boundaries. If your client doesn't respect your boundaries, or if you are concerned that if you set boundaries, your client will fire you, in both cases, they're not a client that you can work with. When that happens, you can say to them, hey, this is not working, but we either need to set the boundaries or we will be so happy to help you find another agency. I know that's painful because you never want to give up revenue, but if you are working for the client and not with the client, you're not going to be profitable. You're not going to be happy. They're not going to be profitable. They're not going to be happy. And you are just extending misery. Boundaries are your friend. I know they're hard to put in place, but you've got to do it.